Good evening, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. This is our Tuesday night live program. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We have a great show for you. We're going to take your comments. We're going to talk about a couple of things that have happened since we did our show earlier today. The first big thing that we've talked about is, Caroline Ellison. Also, the guy that was only charged with Mr. Routh, who's only charged with a couple of gun charges, has apparently officially been indicted as it relates to the assassination attempt of the former president. So that has taken place. Now, for those who have not joined us in the past, my name is Scott Reich. I'm a practicing criminal defense attorney, and we have our YouTube channel here of Crime Talk. We appreciate everybody being here. We did it last week. I mentioned almost 500,000 subscribers on Facebook, over 69 million views on YouTube, and 269,000 subscribers. Not bad for a little side gig that we try to spend, at least an hour on every day, so to speak. Try to make it interesting and relevant. It is time consuming, I assure you that. But it is a lot of fun. And frankly, I have a lot of fun doing this. So thanks for joining us. So let's get to it. If you have a question, feel free to ask a question. We will try to notice it. Sometimes there's a lot of stuff going by. Sometimes I get in a role and I don't notice it. And then we don't ask for such things. But if you did use a super chat, even for whatever the smallest amount, it highlights your question, and I will do my very, very best to get there. All right. So first, Caroline Ellison, the star witness in the FTX founder case against Sam Bankman-Fried. Ladies and gentlemen, a lesson to be learned. Okay. If you are engaging in a conspiracy, an agreement between two or more people to commit an illegal act, right? Like Sam Bankman-Fried and Caroline Ellison were doing. They were taking people's money and saying it was going to be used for one thing, and then they used it for another thing, and then they lost a bunch of money in that other thing, right? Well, if you don't do that, that's called fraud. If you tell them, I'm going to use your money for A, and then I use it for C, that's a misrepresentation. That's fraud. And then when you send the money over the wire transfer, it goes from one state to another. Now you've got wire fraud. And next thing you know, you're looking at 20 years. Sam Bankman-Fried, he got 25 years in prison. He went to trial. Could have got more. He also got his stuff where he was paying all the grifters, all the politicians. That case dismissed because they didn't want to run everybody's name through the mud. It's not like it wasn't illegal activity. I assure you of that. But Caroline Ellison, the rule of thumb here is when you have a multi-co-defendant case, the first one in always gets the best deal, right? When the feds came to Sam Bankman-Fried, what did he tell them to do? Pound sand. You can't do anything to me. I'm a billionaire in Bitcoin. You can't touch me. Nah. I've got a house in the Bahamas. And it was all fun and games until they got a warrant to throw him in a Bahamian jail. And suddenly that wasn't such a good idea. Like, let's get back to the United States as quickly as possible, right? But when the feds went to Caroline Ellison, she just crumbled like a cheap suit. She sang like a bird, a canary in a coal mine. She said, let me tell you how bad everything was. Let me tell you where to look. Let me tell you where all the skeletons are. In that case, not real skeletons, but the financial skeletons. She agreed to testify against her former boyfriend, her lover. Why? Say it along with me. Because the threat of imminent incarceration tends to break the bonds of loyalty. Right? For all those singing along at home, that's right. The threat of imminent incarceration tends to break the bonds of loyalty. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it is. Couple of lessons there. So you got that one, imminent incarceration, bonds of loyalty, and the first one in a multi-co-defendant case gets the best deal. Sam Bankman-Fried goes to trial, tells a pound sand, restitution, a couple $100 million. Caroline Ellison, she gets 2 years. 2. She will be home by next summer when maybe next Christmas, she'll be out. The judge said, hey, you did a great job. I appreciate your candor, your honesty, and cooperation. But the judge says, I just can't give you a get out of jail free card. It's close. It's about as close as you can get to a golden ticket. But no, the Judge Lewis Kaplan, who oversaw the other case, and gave her 2 years. He did say that in his 30 years on the bench, he's never seen anyone like Ellison. She was remorseful, essential to the case, and her testimony was never inconsistent, the judge said. But he said this case, this magnitude, a get out of jail free card is not something that I can see my way clear to, he said. Apparently, Miss Ellison dropped her head at that point, realizing that she was going to go to prison. And so she was ordered to forfeit $11 billion. Not that she really has that, but she can't claim any interest in it as anyone else can. But it's 2 years in prison. And she's apparently tried to look for work, right? There are collateral consequences when you get in trouble with a felony conviction, particularly if you're in finance and you're dealing with money. If you have people dealing with your money, you'd like them to be trustful people, not scammers. So she apparently has been trying to find a job, but given her criminal history and her notoriety, she has been unable to do that. So she has been volunteering at soup kitchens, fostering rescue dogs, and helping low-income families in the Bronx with their taxes. She's been contributing to a nonprofit that sends books to people in prison and jails. And according to letters the nonprofit wrote to the judge, her favorite task is writing personal notes of encouragements to inmates. So she is probably the poster child for sentencing in a multi-co-defendant case. Get in early, be remorseful, atone for what you've done, and yes, work because if you can, but if you can't, by gosh, go do something worthwhile to make you look like you are an acceptable human being to the world out there, and not just some piece of garbage that basically gives up. I don't know how many times I tell this to clients, but somebody had a client that actually listened. It's actually it's a good result, right? Co-defendant, 25 years. Defendant who cooperates, 2 years. Will be out shortly. In the federal system, she's got to serve 85%. So if she reports here in the next month or so, maybe next summer, right? And then the last 6 months, she's clearly going to go to a low security prison. And the last 6 months will be at a halfway house as well. So she'll really be out rather quickly. She'll do about a year, probably do about a year. What can you do about that, right? That's not bad. And I mean, not that $1 million is not it's a lot of money, particularly the people that, the client swindled out of the money. But he didn't do anything that Miss Ellison did, and he got 7 years. So just remember that, ladies and gentlemen. Got to see a question here. Jeremy Grimsley. I remember Sean Combs' attorney. He represented NXVIM cult leader Keith Rayner, and they had no defense. If Mr. Combs is found guilty, does he get anything less than life? I believe there'll probably be a superseding indictment on Mr. Combs, not to switch gears too much, but he's going to prison. Okay. He's at a 15-year minimum. And under the federal sentencing guidelines, you that's the minimum. So even if you guideline out less than that, if there is a plea or something along those lines, then it doesn't really matter. You still got to get 15 years, the way it's charged right now. And anything that he's going to do, even if he took a plea right now, it's still going to be prison time. It's still going to be get out and register as a sex offender. And, I'm not really sure if, everyone keeps talking, oh, he's going to drop names. He's going to drop names. He's going to do this. I don't think, is the U.S. attorney that interested in all these other names? If they apparently have all the videos, they know who to go talk to if the rumors are true that they have the videos on old Sean, did he do it, Combs. He is just, how can I say it? He is, he's in a very tight spot at this very moment. And yes, a very, very tight spot. And I just don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, Sean Combs is 55. Let's say if he even got the minimum, 55, he's going to be 70. Even if you chop off 80%, still 10, 12 years. I mean, he's going to be an old man. And he's not going to get a free pass. That's not going to happen, right? This United States attorney, I mean, U.S. attorneys, they don't want to be U.S. attorneys forever. I mean, I hate to say it, when U.S. attorneys grow up and when prosecutors grow up, what do they want to do when they grow up? They want to be criminal defense attorneys. Or they're going to go work at some big fancy firm that does white collar defense, and they're going to handle investigations, which means they'll never go to court again. They'll just simply say, oh my gosh, this is bad. We need to settle with the government, right? And they do compliance work somewhere. But the ones that really want to do trial work, when they grow up, they want to be defense attorneys. And so how do they make a name for themselves? They have to get themselves a trophy. And so what do they need? In this particular case, they're going after old Sean, he did it, Combs. So he's not going to get a free pass. I'm not sure they're that interested there. They be referring to the United States Attorney's Office. I don't believe that they're that interested in going after other people. Frankly, they kind of knew, based upon the civil cases that they made these cases out of, they had bodyguards and they had all these other people. And, it goes way back, but the statute of limitations under the racketeering stuff, is much longer because it goes from, the last date of an event. And so they got a lot more time. So, I mean, they've got time, but I think somebody at the U.S. Attorney's Office was simply looking for a trophy. And they thought it was kind of a low hanging fruit. Hell, you got that video, which is, I think it was in LA, but they're using that as the basis as one of the predicate acts. Most of the predicate acts, when you look at the indictment itself, are in California and are alleged violations of California code. So, it's, someone's looking for a trophy. If I was advising Sean, did he do it, Combs? I would say, hey man, give me authority. Let me go talk with the United States attorney. If we come clean, what can we do to get you out of here? It's like, you're not going to get a free pass. You're going to prison. We need to minimize that. What do we need to do that? What do we need to do to get anybody? But the problem is, and usually the feds start off at the lower levels and then they work up to the higher up to the top of the pyramid. We've talked about that pyramid that they're always trying to get to. They kind of are at the top already. The question is, well, was he, are all these people at these parties co-conspirators? Like, did they help get the stuff? Did they know it was going to happen? Did they go buy all the baby oil? Did they go buy the drugs? Did they, were they complicit in it? Where does it stop? Right, ladies and gentlemen, should we charge the camera guy? He must have known something was weird. Or maybe he was just installing a real high-tech camera system in the home of a really rich guy. Wanted to make sure he saw everything that went on in his house, right? So they have to have known what was taking place. And so that's where that stands, so to speak, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure the U.S. attorney is really that interested in anybody else from what we can tell. Why didn't they indict the bodyguards, the people that they knew helped cooperate this stuff? I think they're going to look for him. These are the type of cases where everybody bangs their hand on the table and say, we're not going to plead guilty. He's totally innocent. Okay. You got to be a little conservative when you start, beating your fists on the table here and be realistic. Question. Let's see here. Will you do a movie review of Flight Risk with Mark Wahlberg, directed by Mel Gibson? It will include two of your specialties, flying and the law. I've never seen him. I don't see why not. I will try to find it. I thought we were talking about Puff Daddy there, and it was something like that. Are you related to Michael J. Fox? No. Usually what I get, are you related to Bill Gates? You look like a younger Bill Gates. That's what I get all the time. Few are aware. Let's take a look at this. Looks like we're shifting here. Few are aware that Zaina Kernodle commented on childhood friends TikTok with the words "Never forget the foundation" in the bathtub at 4:12 a.m., referring to spilled makeup. Last sign of life. Okay. I'll take your word for that. I haven't seen that anywhere else or any legal pleadings, but we'll see. And we can certainly talk about the Kohberger case as well. Let me go back up here for some questions. Am I missing something? Where's my... This is Julie. Oh, no. Back to LA, this is Julie, his wife. He passed 2/24/24. I still don't believe it's very difficult. Oh, my gosh. Well, Julie, I am so sorry. Oh, that's terrible. Sorry about that. Let's see here. Scott, I have a question about P. Diddy's lawyer. Would you encourage him to take a plea deal rather than take it to trial, and with how much evidence is against him? That's something you always have to talk about with any client. Seriously, with any client, that's what you have to talk about at any point in time is, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to go there? And I think I kind of touched on it. You got to get in. I don't know what the U.S. attorney wants. You're going to say, hey, talk to me, send over a plea deal. Of course, now the U.S. attorney is going to be like, well, it's, what can I say? He's going to have to plead guilty to everything. Well, if you're going to have to plead guilty to everything, see you in trial. What are you going to lose in the federal system? Your 3 points of acceptance responsibility, a couple of years there, so to speak. Okay, when you're 55 years old and you're looking to spend the rest of your life in prison, do you go to have the light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully a number where you can see the light and get out? Or do you say, screw it, I'm 55 years old, and you're going to send me to prison for 20. The average life expectancy in prison is like, 66 or something. It's very, very low. You're not exactly getting the best healthcare, the best food. So, what are they going to do with you? So do you just tee it up and go for it? When they have those situations. Well, I don't care. I'll just go to prison. You might as well be a life sentence. Sometimes you hear that from younger clients as well. 20 years, tell a 20-year-old, you got to go to prison for 60 years. It's a life sentence to them. Even if you go through the math, you say, well, you'll be eligible at 50% and, whatever. It's an eternity. So I don't know exactly what old P. Diddy's going to do, but let's face it. It doesn't look good for P. Diddy. We'll give him the presumption of innocence like everybody is entitled to. But at the end of the day, when the feds come down, I'm not saying you can't win, but it is very difficult. And here, a lot of this stuff was already kind of prepped because they went to these civil attorneys who took these cases And that's how the feds got interested in it. They're like, oh, really? All this is going on? Oh my. We didn't have anything from our agents on it, but how can we ignore this? Let's go. How can I go get that trophy? How can I go up and when I grow up to be a big DA, or U.S. attorney, I'm going to grow up to be a defense attorney. They won't tell you that. We're a company guy. We're going to stay here all the time. I just can't imagine representing guilty people. Oh, I can't imagine that. Right? I mean, that's what they all do. Anyway, we move on. All right. Let's see. I'll go back here down the other way. CrimeTalk, have you read Sarah Boone's motion to suppress interrogation? Miranda was satisfied, correct. I haven't seen that motion, but for some reason, hasn't that already been litigated? My recollection was that she was the one that was the old chatty catty and was just talking her way into what's the word I'm looking for? Into prison. She's the one that said it was an accident that he got into the suitcase by himself, or she zipped him up. So yeah, I mean, if she's Miranda, listen, Miranda doesn't have to be perfect, right? It's always cleaner if it is. Now, if you're in custody, remember, everybody always thinks, well, they didn't Mirandize me. Can I get my case dismissed? They didn't Mirandize me. Remember, you only have to be Mirandized if, one, you're in custody, right? We'll assume that she was at that particular time. And two, they're going to interrogate you about the matter in which, you're in custody for there. Obviously, it only applies to the government, but if you're not in custody, right? If it's an investigatory stage, we show up at the house. Hey, we got a call here of a dead person. What's going on? And they spontaneously blurt out, oh, my boyfriend is in the suitcase and he's dead. I put him in there. You don't have to have that statement Mirandized. It's not suppressible. It was a voluntary admission at that point. He was just trying to figure out what's going on. Officers hadn't placed anybody under arrest at that particular point. Listen, Sarah Boone has had now on her 9th attorney. Okay. 9 of those attorneys could not all have failed to see any issues in that particular case. Sarah Boone, all of the evidence is going to come in against her. And she is promptly going to be convicted. Sarah Boone's chances of winning on a spousal defense are about slim to none. Okay? She should have gone with it was an accident. And I hate it because I hate negligence because accidents shouldn't be charged as a criminal case. But you go with some sort of negligent manslaughter. Oh my God, it was reckless disregard. We were having a fight. We were just playing around. We were just joshing. And I put him in the suitcase, right? Piece of cake. But now to run a spousal defense, a battered woman syndrome defense. Yes, apparently dead boyfriend, not a great guy. Let's be for real. Apparently they've had some domestics. Sarah's been the victim of it. Sarah Boone. But, you would think, I guess you can always go with, well, I was scared. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just said it was this, but I killed him. I intentionally killed him. And it was because I was a battered spouse. It's like a duress defense. Or an NGRI, not guilty by reason of insanity defense. I did it, but I was crazy. I did it because of all the abuse. I couldn't do it. But you still have to show that immediacy, that at that very moment, I was in fear of death or serious bodily injury, or, is this culmination of it, and, all that kind of stuff. I just don't buy it. I just don't buy it. I think it's a bunch of hogwash. This attorney that got on the case, has got all his experts ready to go. The judge has denied any continuance for him. I say, perfect. Let's go try it. It would have been better if Ms. Boone had been in there by herself, because the judge, I think, had made the appropriate record that Ms. Boone had completely forfeited her right to court-appointed counsel. Like we brought you today, attorneys 6, 7, and 8 had to go in there and grovel to try and get paid. And unless you have had that difficult client that literally calls you every day and wants to talk about, I think one of the comments was, she wanted to talk about her legal theory and I wanted to talk about the law, right? Sometimes they just don't get it. You try to keep it focused. Here are the elements of the offenses. Did you, on or about this date, put boyfriend in the suitcase resulting in his death, right? If it doesn't relate to that particular event, not relevant whatsoever. But that's the way you go down that road sometimes with a client. They want to talk about everything else. You ask them, what time is it? And they try to tell you how to build a clock. You don't need to know what the clock is. You just want to know what time it is. Was it an accident? Did you intentionally do it? That's going to greatly determine whether we can put you on the stand. Why didn't you say it was some sort of self-defense / battered women syndrome when you were singing like a bird to the police? Right? First thing the question is going to ask is, well, were you being untruthful to the police, or are you being untruthful to the jury now? Please tell me which time you were untruthful to these fine people over here who are here to decide whether you are in fact guilty and that they should believe your words, maybe decide if you're not guilty. I think it's a terrible defense. Terrible. Just don't see it. Terrible. It's going to be interesting. Mandy's like, hey, I can't wait till this gets shut down. A lot of times, and this is what people don't get. I get it. I tell people, you don't want to plead guilty to something you didn't do, right? Murder is a pretty big deal. Did you do it? Did you not? But then you also got to be realistic. You got to be a realist and say, if I go to prison for 5 years, that's better than life. And I can get out and still try to have a life. And even if that life sucks, it's still better than what's going on in prison. So, I'm a realist. Maybe I could, bite my tongue and say I did something negligently. It was, fall on the sword. I think that's how most people want to do it. But Sarah Boone has turned this thing into such a cluster, what. The judge is going to whack her when they get done, because clients don't realize that when you start playing games like this, like 9 attorneys are not all idiots. At some point, Sarah Boone had to realize that maybe it's her problem and not an everybody else problem, because she just can't get along with anybody. She wants to talk about everything else. She wants to go forward. And I don't know if this attorney thinks he's actually going to get paid, or if he thinks he's going to get, it's unethical to, take the royalties and write a book from it. You can't reveal attorney-client confidences in it. So, why are you doing this? For fame, fortune? I don't think you're going to get anything. Who's going to remember you after Sarah Boone gets convicted? Nobody. But I bet you Sarah Boone will. And she's going to call you a buffoon. She's going to call you a dunce and all the other words that she used to describe all her previous attorneys when she doesn't get what she wants. So there you go. And like I said, her attorneys having to do it, right? And if you've done criminal defense, at some point in your life, you've taken on state or federal cases where the government pays you. And depending on where you go, where you are, it depends. Sometimes like, you're going to have that murder case and, the flat fee is $12,000. I think I've seen that in the South, where you're still going to be working at a reduced rate from what you normally get from your normal hourly rate. But then for the judge, the judge has been dealing with this Sarah Boone lady as well. You would think that he would say, oh, I've dealt with her in court and she doesn't even have my phone number. She may be able to write me 58-page letters, but I didn't have to take her phone calls. So I get it. I'll pay you whatever you think that you are entitled to on this particular case. But for the judge to make them show up in court and basically grovel for their money, that seems a little ridiculous. You have 3 attorneys that spent a year and a half on the case, and it was totaled $45,000. Seems like everybody got off cheap given the nature of Sarah Boone. Let's see here. Let's see. That's right. She can't admit that she was drunk. She's such a liar. I agree, Mandy. She is such a liar. Let's see here. They couldn't get the battered syndrome defense because the attorney admitted they couldn't use it in the motions previous to today's attorney's cost. Yeah. Well, when I saw the judge said he was considering it, did I miss the ruling on that? I don't think I did, but they couldn't get the battered syndrome defense because their attorney admitted they couldn't use it on the motions previous to today's attorney cost. Yeah. It's hogwash. It's hogwash. And I get it's, one case, one trial, big tearjerker case. It's like duress. It's like a duress defense. I did it because they made me do it. I was in fear of my death or serious bodily injury. My family was in fear of death or serious bodily injury. Oh, okay. One of the things for duress is you have to immediately go to police and report it. Did you do that? No. Did you ever tell anybody else about it? No. And the first time you mention this is when you get in trouble with the police. Well, yes, that's all true. That's all true. It's not very compelling defense, ladies and gentlemen. I just don't get it. So I don't, that's what I was going to say. The batter is coming in is what I, thanks, Mandy. I thought that's what I had read or seen or something that the judge had in fact ruled that it was, he was going to, all right, I'll let you play your silly little games. Let's go. But they're going to have a field day with it because they got to put her on the stand. Let the circus begin. Mandy, the judge is striking down the prosecution left and right, so he doesn't look biased when she's convicted. Yeah, and the defense has a right to present a defense, and if the judge prevents them preventing some sort of defense, you can put up just about anything you want on a defense case, but if it doesn't really go to the elements of the offense, going to have a problem with that for sure. I think it's going to be a problem for sure. Peter, we talked about this. So Whitey Bulger's old defense attorney now prosecuting for the state. Not a good look. Cover if anyone, far too many contradictions, coincidences, clowns, cops, kangaroo courts, etc. Peter, interesting. Obviously referring to the Karen Reed case. Yes, the prosecution, who had their top prosecutors on this case already, said they're just not good enough. So they brought in a retired prosecutor, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he is a defense attorney. See, what did I tell you, ladies and gentlemen? All little prosecutors, when they grow up, want to be defense attorneys. And then occasionally, I guess I want to go back. But at the end of the day, it is not a good look that the prosecution has to bring in a private attorney to try the case because the prosecutors in the office apparently aren't good enough. Now, again, it's not in the heart of Boston, but it's, I guess it's a suburb there of it. They should be up to speed. They should have good prosecuting attorneys. They did, pretty decent job, I guess. I mean, they didn't win, but they're already convicted on one count, but everybody screwed it up, the prosecution, defense, and the judge, which is why I don't think the Supreme Court on that particular issue that they have appealed to, Karen Reed has appealed to in that decision, is because everybody screwed it up, right? The defense had 2 or 3 attorneys at the table. The prosecution had 3 attorneys at the table. The judge, so you got 7 attorneys, and no one thought to ask, well, could we take a limited verdict? Could we see if they've reached? Could we send a note back to see if they've been able to deliberate and reach a verdict on at least one of the counts? Is it, what's hanging them up? 7 people. So I think the court will do that. And maybe the Massachusetts Supreme Court is going to be like, oh my gosh, this case is so bad. The heat of the moment, the cameras, nobody knew what to do. 7 attorneys screwed it up. Let's give the benefit of the doubt to the defendant. But I don't think they can. I just don't see how the court can go there. If you start allowing that, oh my gosh, everyone would be intentionally trying to make mistrials. Oh, we were close. We were close to not guilty, Your Honor. We need to just enter the plea of not guilty because we were really, really close. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's going to fail. She'll be asking for hair extensions and a peacock spread her beautiful plumage. But yes, Sarah did make a motion for her to be able to do her hair and to have makeup. Yeah, I know. I don't know what do you say? Yes, obviously the defendant has a right, like Mr. Koberger, he wants his suits, has a right to be presumed innocent and at trial to wear civilian clothes, right? It's a bad look. Even though when the jurors find out, yeah, I'm here on this case, we all know the first thing they're going to do is they're going to go in there, they're going to go to the restroom, they're going to close the stall, and if they've never heard of Sarah Boone, the next thing they're going to do is, who is Sarah Boone? And they're all going to know, what took place. Okay. And they're going to say, oh my gosh, she's still in custody. I would not have known. Look at how well done she is. And then, like most courthouses today, modern courthouses, all the cookie cutter modern courthouses have the magic door, right? You've got the counsel table here, right? Let's say to my right, to your left would be the prosecutor's table. Say you're looking at you're up on the bench from where you are, where the camera's coming at me. They all have the magic door in the side building where they have little holding cells in between other courthouses, right? And then the defendant comes out of the magic door. And then when they take a break, right? When the jury comes out, the defendant is always sitting in her chair. And then they let the jury leave. And then once the jury's gone and the door is locked, then they send the defendant back out to the magic door with the sheriff deputy who just coincidentally happens to be sitting in a general. Jurors start to figure out, if they haven't figured it out already, they say, isn't it kind of weird? We all go to lunch. We see the prosecutors go to lunch. Heck, even the defense attorneys were standing in the same line for lunch the other day. But we've never seen the defendant for lunch. I wonder where she could be, right? It's a legal fiction that we engage in to try to say, oh, we're not going to let them know that they're in custody, right? We used to have a courthouse here in Denver before they built the new courthouse with all the cookie cutter courtrooms with no character, the fake faux wood everywhere, where they actually walk the defendant down the hall with their chains on, the belly chains on, to the courtroom. Those were the good old days. You could talk to your client. Hey, I talked to the district attorney again. As you're clink, 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 clink down there, shuffle, 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 because they got their ankle chains on. And if it was a high profile case, the sheriff would there and the TV cameras would be walking down, with the big light on, shining it on your client. Do you think the jurors figured that out, that your guy was in custody, even though he looks like such a nice young man in those nice clothes that the public defenders got for him? I don't know. It's just kind of interesting to me. Little side note here. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on. Frank, for whatever reason, it looks like your dinner has been canceled. So you may want to come try it again. It says canceled. I'm not sure why. All right. Sorry for that interruption, but we have to feed the hardest working man in show business. I keep him here late on Tuesday nights. The least I can do is buy him dinner. And it didn't quite work out tonight, but you're more than happy to take my phone and try again. Not sure what happened with five guys, I guess, what we were ordering, but that's the way it is. All right. Let's see here. Let's move on. Speaking of dressing out, Bryan Kohberger. Okay. And I got a lot of people in the comments there. They saying, well, why were, because I was like, why would these women take time to, Bryan Kohberger's probably going to prison for the rest of his days, right? It says canceled. I don't know. He's probably going to and it's going to prison for the rest of his days. Let's just be realistic. Let's just say hypothetically he gets convicted. All right. Usually the state, let's face it, it's got a pretty good case. They think they got a pretty good case if they're going for the death penalty. But let's say they don't get the death penalty and he only gets life without in prison. I'm kind of thinking like, who would date this guy? Who would be remotely interested? And I know all the people, well, you can have a relationship but not have a relationship. And I think some people were a little aghast, like, well, why does it have to be women? Men do this too. And I'm sure they do. I just don't think of it. Well, I guess we had, what's her name? Frank, help me out here. What? The woman who killed her mom because she was abused as a child. And they had her, Gypsy Rose. Gosh, brain freeze there. Gypsy Rose, right? She meets her husband through dating, writing letters. He sees him on TV. He becomes enchanted. He becomes infatuated, and they meet. And obviously that didn't last too long, right? So I guess that happens. Maybe not as much. But once again, and if I was talking to old Gypsy Rose's husband, hey, I could be wrong. I could be very wrong about this. You guys may have a complete bond made in heaven, and you guys are going to be growing old together. But normally that's not the case. All right, let's just be realistic. Normally that's not the case. Because one person's going to be in prison and the other's not. The person in prison, even if they're going to get out, like Gypsy Rose, wants somebody to be with her, wants somebody to love her, to take care of her, right? And how long did that last? Until somebody that satisfied her just a little bit more came along. But I don't get it. So whether you're a guy or you're a girl and you want to date somebody in prison, okay, I get it. Maybe if your wife says, hey, I'm going to stick with you, I'm going to wait for you. No, they never do. They never do, ladies and gentlemen. It's just what happens, right? Life goes on when somebody goes to prison. The person that goes to prison needs to understand life goes on. You're not there to provide for them. You're not there to care for them. You need to understand that they need to move on. And it never ceases to amaze me. I swear, I've seen it more than ever. Sometimes at the office, we are just, it is unbelievable. We have seen situations where the guy, let's just say the defendant, because it could be a woman or a man, let's say with a history of, beating his wife up or girlfriends, multiple victims, going to prison for beating up one of his spouses, right? Has been in custody, but is somehow reunited with an old flame or met a new flame. I don't know what it is. And the children of this new person, these young women, are referring to the guy in custody as dad. And they've been together for like 3 weeks. Is it just me? Or does anybody think that that's a little unusual? Right? I don't get it. I don't get it. Now, God forbid, I hope I never have to go to prison. And it'd be nice to have somebody to write to. I totally get that. I'm not trying to do it, but let's just be realistic for what it would be. Somebody's in prison. It's lonely. But that's the thing that people don't think about when they're doing stupid stuff. How is this going to affect me down the road? And when people call, right? If somebody calls from prison, sure, they take your call. Oh, did somebody send Joey, $50 this month? Oh, that was my turn. Oh, I'll get it next month. Right? Then they stop taking the calls. Then they stop sending the money because they need the money. A lot of stuff going on out here. You don't realize how tough it is. It just goes on and on and on, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Let's see here. Okay, going back to Koberger, right? Maybe you could paint paintings. Let's see. I'm looking at some of the comments here. Was put on trial for public. He's out. Was to reply if only I could rub my belly. Let's see here. Expect the Spanish Inquisition. Question. Hey, Scott. Was Diddy arrested in New York City to manipulate the media in focusing on his case and away from the huge corruption case that goes on right now at the New York City police chief and mayor's office? I don't think so. Apparently, old Diddy knew that he was going to be arrested, hence the reason why he was there to turn himself in. He just didn't know he was going to get arrested at the lobby as he was checking into the hotel with his little entourage. He apparently was supposed to turn himself in like the following day or something to that effect. Now, New York City has a lot of scandal. Let's face it. What was it? The commissioner, I think, is indicted. We got fire chiefs indicted for, trying to make the bureaucracy run a little faster. Hey, welcome to big government, ladies and gentlemen. The only way you can get something done is if you grease the wheels, right? We have laws against that. You can't do that when the United States companies go to foreign lands and say, oh, we have to pay a little grease money here to get things going. Well, we call that bribery. Well, guess what? If you have so many regulations and you can't get anything done, you're going to do it here as well. So I don't think it's anything related. And this was the United States Attorney's Office, not the state attorneys that are prosecuting old Sean. I bet he did it, Combs, who will give the presumption of innocence to. But yeah, the reality of it is that I don't think it's there to cover up anything else. Listen, we love the people of New York State. Okay. And I love New York State. Been there many, many times in my life. New York City is something that everybody should possibly see within their lifetime. Great city. The amount of people there, very eclectic, diverse, great food, just busy. The place is jumping. I was there. Last time I was there, it was a couple of years ago. I went for the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers Foundation's dinner. They invited me. One of the presidents at the time was from Colorado. Said, "Hey, would you go?" Sure, sounds like fun. Would you like to donate some money? Sure. Anyway, so I went. It was a good time. And I think now that person is now the head of the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. But it's kind of an East Coast kind of thing. They kind of forget about the Midwest, middle of the country people until they need money, like most people in the world. Everybody forgets about everybody in the flyover country until they need their money or their votes, I guess. But New York is a great state. But let's face it, New York has got a ton of problems, right? And like all cities do. I mean, we can go to Denver here. We got all kinds of problems. We've got some of the crappiest roads ever. And not just Denver. I mean, kind of in the state of Colorado. To house the unhoused, as they refer to them, not homeless, unhoused. $28,000. I think they were up to like 56 million, and they need another 100 million to meet their goals. But yet, every time I drive a car that has kind of low profile tires on it, if you hit a bump, maybe it's my fault. Maybe I need a tire. I got to just drive around a big 4-wheel drive car. But you'd expect to be able for anything to get around. But it costs you $400 every time you hit a pothole, the slightest pothole, because it blows out the tires. I don't know. I think you fill a lot of potholes for $158 million. But that's just me. Anyway, so New York's got a ton of problems, just like lots of places. But I don't think they're necessarily related. Squeaky wheel. Let's see here. I don't know anything about P. Diddy or anything he's ever accomplished. I don't listen to rap music. Never have, never will. Am I one of the lucky ones? Probably. And I think it is also curious that his name comes up in the old Tupac case as maybe somebody that maybe paid somebody. Remember the guy in Vegas? Was it Green, I think is his name, that basically admits that he was in the car of the guy that did the shooting of Tupac. And who was the other guy? Biggs. Anyway, it was an East Coast, West Coast thing. Notorious B.I.G. That's it. So yeah, it's, his name keeps coming up in that. He's been a producer for lots of people. I think he did some music early on. I remember, as a young person, he was Puff, and then it was P, and then, the guy changes his middle name. I think he's got 6 or 7 kids by 4 different women. He spends a lot of money. I'm not sure how he keeps, he's able to keep not spending all that money, but apparently he did. Now it's all going to go to attorneys. The government wouldn't take his house for bond. The attorneys are going to use it for legal fees. I guarantee you they're going to burn through every money there is. Yeah, Biggie Smalls. There you go. Some notorious B.I.G. Scott, is it true near Aurora, Venezuelan gangs are taking over apartment complexes and attacking inhabitants? I have no personal knowledge of that myself. I can only tell you what I've seen on the news. I think that there are some bad apples that are causing some hate and discontent, and a lot of them have been arrested. Now, did they necessarily take over blocks? I don't think so, but it's not like a gang advertises that they took over an entire block to the rest of the world, right? But that's what most turf wars are. I don't know. There's good people. There's bad apples that have been coming over, not just from Venezuela, but from everywhere around the world. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how it all shakes out. I think it's a little combination of, like most stories, there's maybe a little bit of a truth and a little bit of an exaggeration as well. Okay. But it is interesting. how they're starting to crack down. They're starting to crack down on, what is it? De Agua something? Trade? Tren de Agua? Aragua. What does that mean?
It's a state.
State? Oh, it's a state?
Yeah, it's a state.
Oh, it's like a state in Venezuela?
Yeah, it's called Aragua.
Aragua. Okay. Are they bad dudes?
Tren de Aragua?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad dudes. You wouldn't want them as neighbors, is that right?
Not even close, not even in the same state.
Okay. Frank, hardest working man show business, knows a little bit about this element apparently, and says he does not want them as his neighbor. This Tren de Agua, it's named after a state in Venezuela. He says they're bad dudes. Wouldn't want them anywhere near him. But yeah, I mean, I've seen the videos where people are all going in with guns, and the neighbors are saying they're shaking them down, and don't pay rent to the landlord, pay it directly to the gang person at the house. Does that sound out of the completely unreasonable? Like, there's no way that could happen. Oh, I totally believe that could happen. Did it? I don't know. Was it some version of it? Probably. I don't have any personal knowledge of that. But you got to remember, there's a lot of politics going on both sides. So yeah. Susan wants to know, hey, why is Diddy all over the media? We have a lot more problems than Hollywood distractions. I can't disagree with you, but for something about human nature, when you see somebody that has totally made it, right? Everybody wants to take down the king, so to speak. And if P. Diddy, whether you like him or not, know anything about him or not, there's something about watching somebody fall from grace that's been in that kind of position of power for so long, which goes back to one of our greatest rules we have here on Crime Talk is there's two types of people in the world. Those that are humble and those that are about to be. Do you think old P. Diddy, Sean Combs, is just a little bit more humble at this very moment? I would say I think he is. From hanging out at mansions, apparently having some freaky little parties, jet setting all over the place, hanging out with celebrities, producing music, right? And now he's sitting in the Manhattan Detention Center, which is known as hell. And everybody's wondering, Sean, did you do it, Combs? Are you suicidal? Should we be worried? Is there anything we need to know about? Are you okay? Did they upgrade the security system? Is it true? Or are they going to come after you? So it's just, we'll have to wait and see. I don't know why. I think, there's lots of bigger problems in the world that we should all be worrying about. I'm sure. I get it. But there's something about seeing somebody fall from grace who is not very humble about it. I think people that are obviously in positions of power, things go wrong. But throughout their life, they've always been humble. They've been, exercised some grace to others. People will usually forgive them. Not so much if you're just a complete arse, right? And you can tell he is a complete arse is because he's one of those dudes that always wears his sunglasses inside. No matter what time of day it is, he's always got his sunglasses on. You take your sunglasses off when you go inside. I don't care how cool you think you are, okay? That's how you know P. Diddy's at. So, let's see here. Peter, not wrong. It's not human nature. It's human behavior. We choose to do these things. I agree, but it's kind of like, why do we, pull over to watch the car accident? Because we're curious. We want to see how it turns out. Tanya, yep, the detention center is all out of humble pie, which replaced baby oil, right? Because they found, 1,000 bottles of baby oil in P. Diddy's house where he would have these freak parties. I don't know. Maybe they were doing oil wrestling or something. I don't know. I mean, what are we supposed to know? I wasn't invited. If you were invited to a P. Diddy, you email us here at Crime Talk because we want to talk to you. We want to know. We'll be discreet about it. But we want to know, was it a total freak show, as has been described, complete debauchery, or was it just a bunch of rich, wealthy people having their respectable party in the Hamptons? In the Hamptons. That's right. We have our summer place in the Hamptons. And we're going to go to our white party at Diddy's house in the Hamptons. We want to know. Crime Talk wants to know. See, it's the old joke, right? The rich kids have just as much drugs in their school as the poor kids.
Oh, yeah.
It's just better quality, right? You think some guy that's living in the hood in New York City is having these little freak on parties? Probably, if he's hanging around, certain type of people. But old P. Diddy just gets a little better quality of people there, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, Tanya, maybe he's doing water slides, right? I could come up with a list of 10 things that he was doing with 1,000 bottles of baby oil. First comes to mind, he had to fill the pool for oil wrestling. Number 2, his skin is really dry. You need to lather up. If it's good enough for little baby bottoms, I'm sure it's, to make them soft. It's good enough for old P. Diddy's bottom as well. Water slides, right? They make lovely gifts to people, parting gifts, right? Maybe who's buying for the next party, their little go bag to go, right? There you go. Peter, are you like a stoic? That's a far cry. Morbid curiosity versus outright cruelty. It's the only unforgivable sin, and the Romans love being cruel. That is hubristic. You could purchase that search thing and don't commit dating malpractice and find out what it is. Laugh out loud. There you go. It's CrimeTalkSearch.com. Go there, get your background subscription service. Google old Sean Combs. Maybe we should do that tomorrow, Frank. We'll do it before the show. We'll see what comes up on Sean Combs. Just so people be like, wow, yeah. There you go. I'm going to do it. We'll do it. We could do it for every day for the person that we talk about. If we have a name, we could do it for the dumb criminal of the day. There you go. Brilliant idea. There you go. CrimeTalkSearch.com, Sally. CrimeTalkSearch.com. CrimeTalkSearch.com. Maybe he was going to the mountains and sledding with his body. And there's lots of thousands of reasons, right? Maybe he was trying to corner the market, right? Maybe he knew from insider trading. Maybe he's like Nancy Pelosi's husband, who just happened to know to sell all of his shares in Visa just 1 month before the SEC was going to indict them for monopolistic practices. What a coincidence. My God. That man should teach a course online and charge $1 million to how he is able to pick those stocks so well. That, ladies and gentlemen, should be a crime. If we sold $1 million worth of shares just before the SEC indicted Citi, yeah. Who would be knocking at your door? Hi, this is the FBI and the SEC. Would you like to meet some of my friends? We've got some questions for you. It looks like you did some trading. Yes, you did. And you bought it just when you knew it was going to go up, and you sold it like you knew it was just going to go down. But since you're a congresswoman's spouse and she's exempt from the rules because she's a member of Congress, We'll let it go. We'll let it go. Did the sheriff that shot the judge go to court today? I don't think so. Pamela, I don't care about the suits on Kohberger. It gives me the creeps. Pamela, I agree. People are all like, his booking photo. Oh my God, he looks so ruggedly handsome. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. But he wants his suit so he looks good because, they're going to, we don't want to be prejudiced in any way whatsoever. The image that they don't want in the minds of Brian Kohberger is him in his little orange jumpsuit. My image of Brian Kohberger is him in his little orange jumpsuit going from his private plane to his private transportation that took him to the Ada County Jail when he got transferred. That's the image that I have of Brian Kohberger. That's the image that I have. I mean, this guy thinks he's smarter than everybody else. He thinks he's entitled to special treatment, right? He's going big. Why couldn't he just drive up there from Latah County or drive down to Ada County or across the state, I guess, down and over? Put him back in the back of a white creeper van, like every other inmate has to ride in when they get transferred from one jurisdiction to another. An private airplane? Really? Did they think there's going to be somebody's going to try to break him out of custody? I mean, one of his fans is going to send him a nail file or a pick or some type, a hairpin, and he's going to break free from the jail. I mean, I don't know. I just think that's a little bit of waste of money for the government, right? Pave the roads. Pave the roads. Even though it's a different state, I get it. All right. Guess what? That's all we have for you tonight. Thanks for watching. Come join us on the Patreon show. We'll be there in 5 minutes. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.